Is The Artist Way worth reading? It's kind of a mixed bag, in my opinion, and I will show you today what the pros and cons are and also how to take a lot of value out of this book without actually reading it. So the reason I started this book is because it's a bestseller. I thought, hey, everybody loves it. Maybe there's something to it. And I low-key started with a low of enthusiasm, but also forced myself to really go along with the structure of the book. Right away, I thought there was a lot of really good content in the first chapters. Morning pages are an excellent way to learn journaling. If you've never done it before, it's amazing. A lot of the other concepts I also found very encouraging, like filling the well, doing the artist dates, amazing stuff actually. However, fairly quickly I realized that there are some really big problems with the book, and some of them have to do with its historic nature. So when Julia wrote this book, she has created a structure that is leaning on the 12 weeks Alcoholics Anonymous program, which is essentially an addiction recovery program. And the underlying thesis of this book essentially is that we are addicted to not creating. And by discovery of the morning pages, we figure out that there is a sense of self-involvement that's blocking creation and that we're draining with the morning pages and the other activities. Except that you don't need 12 weeks to learn all of that. About in the middle of the book, I realized that there was a lot of unnecessary fluff. Julia kept repeating herself, and I took more value out of the exercises than out of the actual chapters. I had to repeatedly make myself go back to the book because I was determined to finish it, and I did, except the worst chapter was literally the last chapter. And that's really we're kind of already at the cons. I don't think this is Julia's best literary piece. I have not read a lot of her other work. I have looked into some of them. I know there's a 6 weeks artist week program that is half as long as this one. And I think that's probably the way to go because the content of this book doesn't need to be 12 weeks long. And it's kind of strenuous to do it that long. Also, on the con side, Julia is, how do I say this diplomatically? She sounds like a know-it-all. Does that make sense? Like, for example, the morning pages, they are meant to be exactly this way and no other way. Exactly 3 pages long, handwriting, that's it, no other way. But inside of the pages, we can write whatever comes up. No. Immediately, like after learning what the morning pages could do for me, I immediately tried to find another shape for what the morning pages have done for me before. And I found 3 other ways of doing the morning pages that worked just as well. Typing, dictation, and then speech to text. And that's actually what really helped me even finish those 12 weeks. If I, with my low focus and low energy, actually tried to write 3 pages longhand every day for the course of 12 weeks, I would not have enough focus to function for the rest of the day. I tried. And I'm not the only one. I can see all over the internet that people are struggling with this often. People who are creative are often people who struggle with focus. And Julia has expressed little to no understanding, and I don't actually find that very sympathetic. So it might work for her. She might have all of this experience. But just because she has been an addict and she thinks this works for everybody doesn't mean that it has to be the case for everyone. So I'm saying this is a mixed bag. I'm going to keep this really short because this is my 12-week review. I found myself really hating the book, sorry, but that's the truth, in the last week where Julia has expressed one idea in a particularly lengthy fashion. And that kind of opened my eyes that she probably was late to publish the book or something because the last chapter is literally doesn't have a lot of content. Even the exercises are fairly weak by comparison to some of the really good other examples in the other weeks. So too many metaphors. Here, the same idea is described in a cave metaphor, a garden metaphor, a consciousness metaphor, a baking metaphor, and a weather metaphor. The same idea. And it's like, it's covering half of the page, just one idea. And I just feel like as a reader, I don't feel that Julia has a clear structure in mind, like her own structure, apart from the 12-week structure of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's giving, like she put her morning pages into a book without really thinking about the reader's experience. And again, this is probably not the best version of the book. There are shorter versions out there. I would recommend for anybody who's interested to look at them or kind of use this as an encyclopedic book. I don't think it's a book that needs to be read. That's my personal opinion. I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, as somebody else said in their review, but I just didn't like it. I feel that if you're a creativity teacher, you should kind of put yourself in the shoes of the people who are reading your book or watching your videos. I try my very best. I'm not perfect. And of course, Julia also doesn't have to be perfect in her book. However, when you publish something, you are at the point where you have put thought into what you're trying to say. You create a structure. I create a structure for these videos every time, right? I have my bullet points. I know what I want to talk about. And I just don't know if she really did that with this book, except for filling these 12 chapters, having sub-chapters and the exercises, and that's kind of it. So this book, in my opinion, could have been about a third as thick, even for a 12-week program. Sorry. Nevertheless, the exercises in the book, the things she has to say about creativity, there's a lot of really valuable insight there if you don't follow it religiously. And that's really important, because as much as Julia says her God has many names, it can be creativity, it can be called universe, she's not telling us what to feel and what to think. The way she speaks about God and the way she uses the word, it's giving Christianity to me. And I'm not down with Christianity. I don't have an issue with it per se, but I also just can't relate. I have a very broad understanding of what creativity is and where it comes from. And no matter how often she says it's wide, it feels narrow, especially in the last chapter where the God talk just becomes so thick that it doesn't sound neutral to me anymore. Some of the contents of this book and also some of the quotes of this book are related to self-growth authors that by today's standards are pretty common sense. Maybe they were something special and new at the time the book was written, in the 90s, published. Nowadays, some of these things are just really commonplace, like exploring your childhood and understanding how you form your beliefs and your reality. Anybody who has done any work on themselves is probably bored in the middle of the book. Yeah. So, long story short, is the book worth reading? Not in this version. I think you can get the benefit from the book if you just borrow it from the library and read the first chapters and then try and apply these lessons throughout. You can also look at vlogs of people who have followed this book, mine and those of other people, to get an idea of what it's about. But don't waste your time thinking somebody else knows more about your creativity than you and how to get in touch with it, because it's really not that deep. If you've learned journaling, if you've created a consistent practice for you, you don't need a God jar or a God altar or any of those things. You probably already have it, although it doesn't look the way she thinks it should look, which is childish, because the inner artist is a child and art is a spiritual exercise and doesn't include intellectualism. Yeah, for some people it does. And that's where I found myself really annoyed, especially towards the last chapter of the book, with kind of the confidence with which Julia claims to know things for everyone. Yeah, it's essentially the reason why I don't recommend this book after finishing it, after, forcing myself to writing endless pages longhand. No, just borrow the book from somebody or get the audiobook or the 6 weeks version. Yep, peace out.